Lucid has just done something that I think most EV companies wish they had done today, and that is their new UX reveal. Today we're going to dive into it deep. My name is Paul Barron. This is TechPath. As you guys know, we cover a lot around the innovation around technology, and of course EVs is on the front edge of that. And of course Lucid has been one of these very elusive companies that hasn't really rolled out and stayed in line with what they have kind of been promising. Their CEO, Peter Rawlinson, as you well know, former Tesla guy, is still credited probably as the lead engineer on the Model S, though there is some question to that with Elon and Peter. But the point is that we're seeing the evolution of a car come to life right before our very eyes, and today's drop of their UX was no different. This is one that I think is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. If anything, we're probably going to see a stock lift on Lucid, most likely, because this really starts to showcase what the Lucid driver experience is going to be like. It has been a bit elusive in the past, but this, I think, starts to pace it and put it into its run it through its paces, and really kind of put it in a position where I think it's going to be able to compete against other hot level EVs. And when you think about that, let's say, okay, the Mercedes EQS lineup, I would say probably is going to be the true head-to-head with this. I don't necessarily consider the Model S really a head-to-head, though we may see the Lucid and the Model S being compared mainly because of price-wise, but the difference between the two cars is pretty striking. Let's talk first about the Glass Cockpit. This instrument panel on the Lucid is the instrument panel and UX that needed to be done in an EV. When you look at what's happening in the EQS, and if you haven't had a chance, check out that video over there. The big problem, I think, with what Mercedes did was these multi-panel across, they just went overboard, really over the top on where they needed to be. And I know that's kind of a Mercedes thing, but at the same time, most of what we're seeing in terms of car design has been going more to the minimalist features. And even though the UX on Lucid is not necessarily, I would not consider it minimalist, in comparison to the EQS, I would consider it minimalist. But that's the whole point, is that we're starting to see quite a bit of centralization and also kind of at the same time, a little bit of expansion as well in certain areas to help give you a driver a little bit better experience. So pilot panel is kind of the center. You've probably seen it right here on screen now. The center console is kind of the iPad that sits down in the console and slides away, which I think is a great tool and feature with being able to kind of concentrate and do things. But one thing I like about the pilot panel in terms of what it can do is it gives a lot more driver control. If you're a Tesla owner like me, one of the biggest complaints and gripes that I get from the passenger or the rider in my Model Y, which is now Model 3, Model Y, now that center screen essentially has been migrated over into the Model S and the Model X. So the biggest problem with that is being able to shift controls on the fly as you're driving. And it's actually been a bit of an issue to where now my wife, I'll give her and have programmed her phone in to where she can go to the media controls and run it, because running just the sound system, and she loves to, just go through Spotify lists like crazy, but it creates a real problem for her to reach up to almost to the front of the dash, make a selection, change an audio, variation. This is in a much better place, and also I think gives a much better user experience in terms of just the centrifugal point of where you can access the pilot panel. I think it's going to be, first of all, it's a great user experience scenario. I almost feel like this is one of those things that Johnny Ives, which I know is an advisor to Lucid, is probably had a lot to do with where this was going. So glass panel cockpit is divided into three main sections. On the left, you have the vehicle controls, basically lighting, wiper settings, glass defogger, etc. And then the center of the glass cockpit are the instruments. So very subtle, but yet at the same time very informative. I love the look of the center console or the center glass cockpit side of this display. You still get, the traditional speed information, charging information, range, etc. Perfect place for that. When Dream Drive is activated, though, the glass cockpit presents all vehicles and objects around the car on the central screen. So I think this is where it really gets interesting. There's some other aspects to this too, which I thought was cool. The audio side of it that gives you audible signals from the area. So if you get a warning, like I'm driving my Tesla and I know I'm getting a lane shift warning, it doesn't really give me that I'm shifting over to the right, to the left, or maybe I have a car coming up in my blind spot, right or left if I'm in the center lane. I'm not necessarily sure. This kind of audio feature, I think, is brilliant. It's possibly, I don't know if they patent this or not, but this is a really interesting way to handle audible, intervals on giving you notices and being able to really kind of use that surround sound to kind of get you in a much better position in terms of driving. So that's a big part of it. I think also when you look at the Dream Drive, which is Lucid's level 2 driver assistant, Lucid's version of autopilot, basically, I think this is going to be something that really compares up to what's going to happen in a comparison to maybe the Tesla, though, as I said, I don't know that this is necessarily going to be a heavy Tesla comparison, even though I do think people will, of course, Model S buyers will probably look at the Lucid, but Model S buyers are Model S buyers, and that's a different scenario. On the right of the continuous 34-inch screen, basically that makes up the whole cockpit, basically what you're going to find there is navigation. You're going to get the media control, communication commands for your phone, etc. And then the driver or the front passenger can swipe and do anything on that screen as well to the pilot panel to see them in more detail. So that I thought was really cool, basically sending it almost like, what's that Tom Cruise movie out there? Yeah, Minority Report. Kind of has that feel to it, but not overly Minority Report in the sense of the way that it's not on a holographic. But I love that feature. Again, this is something that I was very surprised at this reveal drop that Lucid did today on how extensive they have done their creature comforts and their controls, which when you're driving and their version was an iPad on wheels, meaning Tesla, there are some lacking elements. And I think sometimes Tesla forgets that you're one, maybe two, or even three menus deep to be able to find something on a Tesla. And a good example is just you're running your wiper controls. Even though you do have the wiper controls, being able to control those if your auto wiper is on and it's starting to pick up rain mist, but then it goes off, like here in Florida, you get these sun showers. Next thing you know, it's a bright sunny day, but my wipers are still on. So I have to go through essentially a few menus to get my wipers off. Again, those kind of things just feel less intuitive versus what you see and really experience in this new Lucid UX. The other thing that I think is interesting here is they have gone with Alexa as the voice command. And the voice command capacity, now I will say Tesla's voice command is very accurate and very efficient, but there are a lot of things I cannot get it to do where Alexa is getting better and better, and I still would argue that Alexa is going to be the default voice system that we will use, much like the iPhone, in terms of user interface for our handheld devices. This, I think, is going to be the default system. I'm surprised that we don't see this maybe coming up in Tesla soon. So the other thing too that I like about this on the UX design of the Lucid is the facial recognition. I mean, come on, this is perfect. It needs to be there. There's no reason for me to jump in after my wife drives my car, have to go over to user settings and have to rechange that. And it should know that I'm in there and be able to automatically adjust my driving preferences, which are completely different than my wife and or a valet or any of those kind of scenarios that you really need those kind of benefits. I know this is first world problems, but the point is you're spending over 6 figures on an automobile, a luxury sedan. These are the kind of things that have to be there, and I think that's going to be something that really starts to set the Lucid apart. Different interior theme color palettes, another killer. Back to the Tesla, very lame Jane, unfortunately. You have to add on, abstract ocean stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you're a Tesla owner, you've done abstract ocean upgrades. You've had to do that for your lighting system just to get those ambient light systems looking a little cooler. The apps can expand or contract. That's another feature. I still like the UX in the Tesla. There are some benefits that I do think the Tesla UX is going to beat. Now, granted, Elon's promising us a new version of the UX, and when that comes out, when we see that, then maybe things will be a little bit different, but we still have the physicality issue of where that center panel and console is on all of the redesigns from Model 3 all the way to Model X. So that in itself, I still think is going to have a bit of a problem versus the Pilot panel down below. And that I am more appreciative. I almost want to think about going and looking at an older Model S now because of where that positioning was for the screen versus where you are in the Model 3 or the Model Y and soon to be the X and S. I don't know that that's functionally a perfect place for it. And now that I've driven a Model Y for 8 months, really seen it in, day out use, it's comfortable but not perfectly placed in terms of UX. I've almost thought about maybe there's an aftermarket tool that you could get other than just the spin tool that is out there for that center screen. Maybe something that could almost like a monitor arm to where you could bring that down a little bit. I know that you lose your speed, so there's a lot of potential fault as I'm getting to in terms of the UX in some of these EV designs that are going on. I think Lucid has stepped the game up in a big way and put out a huge flag in the sand to say we're going to own the user experience in the EV world and we're going to kick some tail. That drop of this video, I think, pretty much says it all from going forward, that this is going to be the new standard in terms of luxury EV design. These are the kind of UX controls that are going to also probably be just table stakes to move into that next era. They are using some physical buttons. They're much differently designed than what you typically see in a car. LEDs on the front car are going to give you display the state of charge. You're also getting the Dolby Atmos, which includes directional audio cues, as I mentioned. You're getting Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You're also getting things that I think when you look at the Tidal and Spotify, and I just love all those kind of entertainment options that right now I don't necessarily have in my Tesla. It's basically Tesla audio and Spotify, and that's pretty much what you get. Seat massage, like that, I could give or take it. I mean, it's a neat feature. I'm sure, yes, a car over 6 figures should have something like that. But the creature comforts and the UX to me is probably the one thing that you're messing with the most. And that's where I think the safety, the ability for autonomy, driver engagement, all those kind of things really play out on UX in the future. More features and apps to come in the future, so it's going to be upgradable. That's another big deal. And they're using 32 sensors, which is the highest resolution LiDAR on this. So again, I think what Lucid has done here has pretty much kind of set the stage for a battle that will be occurring in terms of the creature comforts that will be applied. On one side, you have Mercedes, which has gone essentially over the top, and I'm not sure that that's going to be the way to go with something, especially like an EV and a technical car, meaning a technology-driven car, because drivers are already a little bit overwhelmed with all the controls of the old ICE vehicles. When you throw an EV in them where they have a whole new set of arrays that they have to consider, and just to be thinking through things differently. My wife drives an ICE vehicle, BMW. I drive an EV, and the scenarios between the way she interfaces with the car and the way I interface with the car, it's completely different. It is a completely different expectation, and it's a completely different experience. And as you start to drive EVs, you learn where the hits and the misses are, and that's what's happened for me with my Model Y, is that I still love, don't get me wrong, full disclosure, I'm a Tesla investor, I am a Tesla lover, and I probably will go for many years owning a Tesla. But if I'm looking for that second vehicle, like my car, my wife's car, is if we didn't need the ability to go to a hatchback for our kids, I don't know, I would probably give Lucid a shot with what they're doing right here. It's absolutely stunning. The amazing look that they have put out in the interior has pretty much set the stage at an all-new expectation level for EV buyers across the slate and the gambit. I think this is only going to get better with Lucid. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Tesla responds, if at all. And of course, if you're looking at buying an EV and maybe you're looking at a high luxury EV, maybe you're looking at the Model S, maybe you're looking at something, going down the outdoor route, or maybe even going into some of the Japanese or the Korean vehicles where we're seeing a lot more potential opportunities there. I think if we can get Toyota in here with some really interesting, I can't wait to see what Toyota does. I think they are going to absolutely kill it. I love Toyota's interface and Lexus and where everything they're doing. I also like what Hyundai's doing, because Hyundai, I always get that wrong. Hyundai is, I think, have some really great things with the EV6. They've got some great stuff with the Ioniq. There's just so much happening in the space, and I think what has happened here is Lucid has just done a one-up. So if you like this, make sure and spread this out there to your friends. If they're looking to get into an EV, tell them to, hey, subscribe to the Tech Path podcast. If you're listening to this in your Tesla, I know you're probably tuning out right now, but if not, and you're over here on YouTube, make sure and subscribe to the show. That's how we get the best help from you, our audience. And of course, give us a rating, and on podcast, give us a review and a comment right here on YouTube. And of course, subscribe, hit the bell for more notifications of shows and topics like this. We love to try to share what's happening in the space, especially around this fast evolving release. I want your comments on whether or not you think Lucid is going to deliver the number of cars, meaning more than 500 vehicles this year. Put it in the comments below. I want to see if you guys think they'll do it, or if they miss it and all of this is just a big smoke screen. You tell me. Tell me what you like. You can catch me on Twitter @PaulBaron. And of course, as always, we'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.